ladies, welcome to our No Bad Days Simple Wellness for Women show. I'm Jolene Fisher, your host, and every episode of the No Bad Days show will give you a glimpse into the life of another woman. She'll share her story, her triumphs, her struggles, and the lessons that she's learned along her path. And my goal as your host is to bring topics to you that are relevant and encouraging, because I want you to be inspired to be the heroes of your own story. And that is why I introduce you to brave women doing hard things, because they are truly living out the motto of No Bad Days. And so today I've asked Katie Wilder to be on the call. And so, hi, Katie.
Hi.
Katie calls Spokane Valley home. She is a mother of 2 adult men and 3 adorable cats, which we'll be hearing a little bit more about here. Her cat even has an Instagram page. So she's worked in mortgage lending since 1997, when she made the career change from IHOP waitress to receptionist at a local mortgage broker. She worked her way up over the years and has a successful career today. She's her mom's best friend, a 3-time divorcee, a yogi, a Christian conservative, a true crime enthusiast, and a bar instructor. She's also a recovered addict and alcoholic who's living her happiest life so far. So I'm so excited to welcome you to the call today, Katie.
Thank you. Hi.
Go ahead. You're going to say something.
That's it. Am I supposed to say something?
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
So I usually like to start off the call just by asking you some background questions so everyone can get to know you a little bit better. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and kind of your background in life.
I'm essentially from Spokane. We moved here in '87 from Iowa. And so I was about 12. I did the bulk of my really formative growing up here. So I consider Spokane home. I pretty much lived here my whole life and had my kids here. And so
how old are your boys?
My boys are 24 and 19.
Okay.
Yeah. I had my oldest son when I was 20. And
yeah,
so,
you're a young mom like my mom.
Yeah.
20 years
I got
old.
it out of the way. And so now I'm like virtually an empty nester, which is really nice because I don't think I would know what to do with children during COVID. That would send me into orbit, I'm pretty sure. So
I know. I've always thought the same thing. So for all you moms out there that are watching that have young ones, bless you, because
yeah, God bless you, because I could not do it. No way.
So talk to us about, like, you grew up here, and what high school did you go to?
I went to U High, class of '94. So I went to the old form of U High, not the one down on 32nd. And I met my first husband through a friend when I was in high school. And so, that's where I launched from. It's interesting, and when I say I'm an alcoholic, I can also trace my the beginnings of my bad behavior or my off the wall behavior back to my very first instances in high school with alcohol. So I really think it's important, if kids cannot drink early, and they don't form a relationship like I did,
Right. So was it more like going to parties, or was it more just drinking at home?
We'd go to parties, and ultimately what would happen is us young women would aspire to be the tough girl. So we'd need to keep up with the boys when it came to consumption of whatever it was at the party. And it created a relationship that was an all or nothing relationship, in lots of ways that goes with everything in my life. I'm all or nothing in lots of things. So,
okay. Yeah. So you met your first husband or boyfriend at the time.
Yeah. I met him when I was just almost 16, and we got married just before Justin was born. And Justin was born in '96. So,
okay.
So, yeah.
And
he was such a blessing, but not the most timely thing. I realized later that my parents were like taking the child from me, and I thought they were just really wanting to spend time with the child. No, I was a 22-year-old mom, and I was ridiculous. And I'm sure they were just like, "Oh my God, I gotta help her." So, yeah.
Yeah.
I only realize that now, though. So,
right. At the time, what did you think about all that?
I thought they were being nice and that they wanted to play with the baby. So, here, have the baby.
Well, we all know it takes a village to raise kids anyway, so.
It really does, and I don't know what I would have done without them. So it's, yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Good.
amazing. Good family is amazing.
So tell us about after Justin was born and you and your husband are still married at this point, and your relationship with alcohol may have been changing at this point. Tell us a little bit more about that and how
At
that.
that point in time, it was more surface. It was like a little here and a little there. I had a new baby, and although I played along around with substance throughout my years before then, it wasn't negotiable. I wasn't going to be a bad mom with this baby, not necessarily a bad mom, but an addicted mom. And I really was not, at that point in time, I don't think I would have really have identified my dysfunction. So I smoked cigarettes though too. So oftentimes, I have pictures of myself nursing a baby with a beer next to me on the table and a cigarette in my hand. I mean, that's how young and just completely out of touch I was.
Right.
Doing the best I could, but still clearly not connecting with, what was healthy and what would make me well and what would help me thrive and like myself. It's such a journey in our lives to try to find a place where we like ourselves. And, at that point in time, I just was completely checked out.
And you can identify with not really knowing who you were or using.
I didn't. I had no idea who I was. I was married to a man that I thought I wanted, but treated me poorly. And I was aspiring to be some man's savior so that they would then gush for their undying love to me, just like in one of those rom-com movies, where they have this moment and this guy has this epiphany and this woman is his shining star and his treasure for the rest of her life. That doesn't happen. You come to the table with what you've got. So if somebody comes to the table, the first things you think you don't like about them are probably going to be your big issues later on. And this is why I've been single now for 8 years since my last divorce, because I was just done with the whole, redefining myself every time I'm in a relationship. We just tend to do that as strong as we are,
Yeah, for sure. So when you were going through those early formative years of having a baby and being a mom and trying to juggle being a wife to somebody that you didn't really love, it sounds like it was just kind of being somebody you weren't. Tell us about how that evolved for you and what maybe you would teach yourself if you can go back in time and talk to that woman today, what you would tell her.
Oh my God. Well, I want to clarify, I totally loved that man. I loved him to death, and he just broke my heart, in the end. He was just never going to be it, and I had to come to terms with that. So in case my son is ever to watch this, I want him to be clear on that. What I would tell myself is to go to college. I had the means and I had the time. I was essentially working part-time. I had support. I would have gone to college. My mom thought I was always college bound, and I was. But then I met this guy and I traded on my path there for this relationship. And probably because I had some stuff about myself that I just really didn't like for whatever reason. So I would tell myself to go to college. I would tell myself to not be selfish when I parented my children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, I think we're all selfish to some degree, especially if we're young parents. But I mean, even then, even in addiction, that makes the selfishness even worse. It's exponentially worse when you add in an addiction that just progresses. So.
Right. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be the president of the United States at one point in time.
I love it.
But I wanted to be an architect. When I was 12 years old, I had a drafting desk and all the tools. And I used to cut out a plan of the week out of the Spokesman Review. They had like a house plan, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And they were all over my bedroom wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'm a very type A and systematic type of person. So I think I just liked the clean lines and how organized it all was.
Right. Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting. Have you ever thought about even maybe pursuing that, or are you
You know,
open to those ideas of, I always
I'm
say you're
really,
never too old to reinvent yourself, so that's kind of where I'm going with it.
I went back to college for a period of time many years ago because I thought I wanted to be a family law attorney too. But then I was also working in mortgage, and that 2008 bubble burst, and there was no time to go to college and work in mortgage. So I'm really just very good at what I do. And I don't mean to be that person, but I'm good at what I do. I'm regarded well in what I do. I'm confident in my skills in what I do. I'm really content in the job that I ended up in by accident, you know? I feel like so often things feel like they're imperfect, but they're actually perfect in the state that they are. And with all of their flaws, with all of their seeming mistakes, there really are no mistakes in life. Everything happens for a reason, and I firmly believe that the creator above is the reason. So I've seen it work in my life. I've seen it bring me through the hardest of times.
Mhm. I love
You
that.
know,
I
I
love
gotta lean into the trust that there is a plan, and I don't always have to know what it is in order to be happy and find joy. You know,
That's
so
awesome. I love it. No bad days, no matter where you are. Just have the perspective that you're where you are for a reason, and that you're learning from it, right? That's what I
yeah.
like to think, at least.
I kind of laughed to my mom last week when I told her I was doing this because I'm like, how in the hell am I an example of what's healthy now? But I really am healthy, my story tells something, and then it shows that there's hope, and it's such a celebration
Yes,
to feel happy and content and like you like yourself at a place in the world. So,
I love that.
but only through sobriety and only through faith.
Hmm. Why don't you walk us through how you came to know that you were coming to terms with the fact that you had an addiction? So maybe walk us back through your past a little bit. You had your
Okay.
first marriage, you loved him, you broke your heart, as in your own words. And then what happened? What kind of brought you along the next thing in your path?
I got married again a couple of years later. I think I thought I knew enough about the guy. I was young, I was 23 at the time. And I wanted another baby before I got old. And I thought, and I thought I was supposed to be part of a family unit. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have your children, and there's supposed to be a dad. There needs to be a dad. Um, so I got married again and had Seth. I think a year or and a half into the marriage, and I'm not sure that his dad was altogether well. We were at a window of time in our age where if there was a mental illness, maybe it could have manifested during that time. So our relationship was very complicated, and we ultimately parted ways. And he hasn't seen Seth since Seth was 3 years old. By his own choice, I begged and pleaded and written letters to his parents. So there's that. And then a few years later, I met my last husband. I was introduced to him by a friend who lived next door to him, but then he also knew somebody else in common. And he had a significant drinking problem. But I thought it would be really awesome to be that savior and to win this man and maybe help him with this, and because he had really amazing stuff about him. He was very handsome. He was very handy. He could build anything. He was a charming guy. I mean, he was a great guy, but he had a significant problem. So I just joined him instead. And it was a complicated 10 years. And in looking back, it was chaos for my children. And it was chaos for me. I mean, it was a repeated trauma. No matter what the episode, whether it was a fight at Christmas, whatever it was that was happening, there was always a fight. There was always a disruption, and probably on a 2-week occurrence. That's a lot of trauma over the course of 10 years.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I hit a breaking point, and I realized that I might have a problem of my own, and I need to break away from this man if I'm going to save myself from this. So I offered him a 90-day program, and that I would pay the bills or he could choose alcohol. And he opted for alcohol, and I can't control that. At that point, it was pretty much over, and my tears were already cried, and I was just ready to go.
Yeah.
So, but then he went, and I continued to drink because I was alone. What am I going to do? I'm bored. I'm alone.
Right.
And I wasn't a drinker that drank around the clock. I didn't get up in the morning and drink. I didn't drink instantly the moment I got home. I probably craved alcohol, but I didn't. It wasn't a consistent thing. I wasn't physically dependent. However, when I drank, I drank. I drank 3 bottles of wine on a Friday night. And then I couldn't get out of bed on a Saturday because I was so sick. I probably had alcohol poisoned myself. And this happened countless times. I mean, I lived in this complete doldrum, and I'd wake up in the morning and all I would feel was hatred for myself. And I called it the dreads.
How many years did that go on for?
I want to say 3 or 4.
Okay.
I didn't drink for a while, for almost a year at one point, but then I took a year off somewhere in there. But yeah, 3 or 4. And my poor son, Seth, he was the only one living with me at the time. I can't even imagine how scared he must have been. His dad dipped out on him when he was 3 years old. And I am the only one he has in the whole wide world. And I'm completely off the grid. The crazy thing about it, though, is I functioned so well. And I kept it at home, and I kept it under wraps, and I kept really good secrets. And I got him to keep my secrets too.
Okay.
So now, as you can see, I'm here publicly telling people this. I don't keep any secrets. There can be no secrets in my life, because the minute I start keeping them, what's to stop me, from traveling down that same path? I don't necessarily have to announce all my details to the entire universe, however, but I'm not hiding anymore.
Yeah, I love your story, Katie. Thank you for sharing and being so
Yeah.
vulnerable with everybody, because when you're vulnerable with others, it gives permission for them to heal and to seek out help as well. So we never know who might be watching that resonates with this story or has someone that they know. So talk about the people in your life, other than Seth, who were maybe observing all of this from the outside. And you said you kept secrets really well. Did no one know what was going on?
My mom knew that I had a problem. She knew I was a terrible drunk. And she'd been the recipient of some of my worst behavior I wouldn't even mention here. So she definitely knew I had a problem. But she also knew that there was this core of me that would do the right thing ultimately, or she hoped, but she was there and she was watching. But even then, I kept lots of secrets from her. She didn't know how frequently it happened. She didn't know how extreme it was,
Yeah.
And so she knew my best friend, Jennifer, who has been friends with since I was 13 years old. She knew, and she loved me anyway. And she wouldn't put she wouldn't put the tough love on me, but she was very honest with me, and she let me be very honest with her, even while I was still in the throes of using.
Yeah.
She was the last one I talked to before I got arrested that night. So, because
Yeah.
I always called her when I was drunk. I'm sure she loved that. That's so awesome.
And you said Jennifer was the one that prayed with you prior to this call today, right?
She did.
Yeah. So unconditional love can do powerful things in someone's life.
She and I know where all the bodies are buried, and I wouldn't have another partner in crime. She's the best.
Oh, that's awesome. So you talk about an arrest. Tell us about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. March 9th, 2017. I thought, sure, I'll join some friends for a beer after work. Normally, I kept all my drinking at home. And I always told myself, I tell myself the same old story. To this time, it's going to be different, and I'm going to control my drinking. So I'm just going to have 1, or I'm going to have 2, and it never is. The first drink you have, the more drinks you want. I'm already counting my 8th drink on my first drink. It was all over from the very first sip. And for whatever reason, because I was drunk, my kids have asked me, why did you do this? Because I was drunk. Because I wasn't, the more drinks you have, the less your rational skills work, the less you think about the fact that there's an Uber, because I was drunk. So I fortunately didn't drive very far. I drove to a gas station just down the street from the bar to buy a pack of cigarettes. And then I drove back to the bar because I was like, ooh, I am too drunk. I'm going to park this car and get a ride home with my friend. Too late. The guy in the gas station had called me in, and I had my foot on the brake and the car in drive. I was stopped back at the bar, and I was trying to operate my phone, and a spotlight came up behind me. And even then, I thought, I can get out of this. No, I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
I went and they booked me, and unfortunately my telephone was in the car that they had impounded because I could have been released, but it was, and so I didn't have any phone numbers to call anyone, and I tried my mom, but for some reason I wasn't getting through, so they had to take me to the county jail and book me into the county jail.
Wow, Katie.
And I had to go to court the next day. I had to spend overnight. I never slept a wink. It's the grossest place on the planet. And I mean, I told people I'm too fancy for jail, but everybody's too fancy for jail. Nobody should go to jail. It is the worst place ever. So I spent 20 hours in the jail, and then I walked down the street from the jail because I didn't have a phone to call my mom, and had somebody at a bar call me a taxi because at least I had my wallet and my debit card. So I took a taxi home, and then I called my mom from the house phone that thank God I had. So.
Wow. And from that experience, was that your rock bottom, or
That was my rock bottom. I'm in the jail and I'm hungover and it's gross, and I know that nobody's contacted my work. They wouldn't let me contact my child. And I'm just sick, I know I've got a situation on my hands here, and every minute is so long. And I just prayed. I prayed. I didn't even remember the people's names that were in jail in the Bible, but I knew that there were faithful people in the jails, and I prayed. And I asked the Lord to move himself in my life. And I asked for strength, and I prayed a prayer of surrender. And when I let go of the control and gave it over to God, it truly does work,
Yeah. Oh,
so I came home, and my mom came over, and then my dad called because she had let him know I was in jail. And he said, you can turn this into a victory.
Oh.
Yeah, and then he died 29 days later.
Oh, no.
So I turned it into a victory. I don't think I would have stayed sober if he hadn't gone. I don't know. But by sheer will to get through, something worse happened. You think you've got something bad happening, and then something worse happens. And what it ends up being is the best thing that ever happened to you, because it changed your life, and it led you down a road to find who you truly were, and to become acquainted with her, and to like her. And if I achieve nothing else in my entire life, the fact that I've lived a life where I can ultimately say I like myself, I love myself, that I'm winning,
Yeah. You're a beautiful woman. And I remember.
So my theory is nothing really horrible can really happen that can't be handled. I mean, we're all strong enough.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. When I first met you, you were so inquisitive about health and wellness, because you were on this journey that I had no clue about until a couple months later when I saw you again for an event. This story came out about the alcoholism and the arrest, and I was like, what?
Most people are very surprised because I seem like a person where things come easy. Things are not easy. We're comparing our insides to other people's outsides. It's not easy. It's,
Or we're
so
comparing somebody's, our middle with their
yeah.
end. So they've come through the alcohol addiction recovery, and now you're very invested in your health and wellness, and you're a bar instructor and a yogi, and your faith is stronger because of all of that's happened. But then some people are trying to compare their middle of their chapter or book to your end.
Right.
So that can
We're
be
all at our different places.
right.
But what's interesting then is that that hopefully if people can identify that that's not their place, then they can see that there is something ahead. There's always something ahead. I have no assurance that more horrible things won't happen in my life, but I do know I can handle them because I'm not alone. And aside from God, I have an amazing tribe of people in my life that love me and accept me for who I am. I mean, I thought I was an antisocial person. No, I was an alcoholic and I was hiding it. I wasn't so much an introvert as I was hiding my problem. So now I've connected with people and I have friends, and I have a whole group of ladies at the bar studio that I love. And my son kind of laughs because he's like, "You have friends?" I'm like, "I know. See, I'm going and doing stuff." It's weird.
Oh, that's so
I'm still
awesome.
quite a homebody, though. The cats need me to keep them company.
Cat lady. So
Yep.
I want to go back to your story though, and then we'll talk about the cats. But
Oh, no.
well, I know you love cats, so it's part of
I
you and
do.
who you are. But this time that you came home from jail and you called your mom and your dad came over and that conversation with your dad happened, what was the next step in your journey?
My next step. So I had to call my boss the next day and tell her why I wasn't at work, and they'd figured it out by then because, I mean, they were at the bar earlier. So, they're smart enough to look it up online. So I dealt with that. I went to work on Monday. I sat down with my boss's boss and I told him what happened. I told him what I planned to do. I told him how I planned to resolve it. I just passed my 90-day mark at this new place. So thank God for that. And they gave me a chance and they supported me and they allowed me flexibility so I could get to AA meetings on my lunch breaks. And they rallied around me and they celebrated my successes, and it was amazing. And that was another one of those fortuitous things. I'd just taken that job and I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to be there because those people became my family. I recently just left that job last month and I still miss those people desperately. So
Oh, yeah, they were with you through such a trying time in your life, but
yeah.
tribe is everything. Who we have around us they're like
Exactly.
a family.
And I started feeling like I needed, in order for me to get through, I had to surround myself with people that were well, not people that weren't well. That wasn't working for me anymore. I was smart enough to see that. Thank God I didn't fry that many brain cells. So after that, I got into a drug and alcohol assessment. What I was going to do is I was going to do two of them. I was going to do the fake one where I'd lie to them and then they'd tell me that I didn't have a problem and I could present it to my lawyer to present to the court and hopefully get my charges lowered. And then I was going to do my real one because I realized I really needed the help and I really needed to address this problem if I could just get off this charge. So something in me said, don't do the fake one. So I just did the real one and I worked with my attorney and I ultimately settled for the full charge. So I started a rehab program. I did a 6-month outpatient rehab program, and I went to meetings where I sat and I listened to people talk about things that, I mean, it makes me seem like I'm a really boring person with my problem, the things that they've got going on in their lives and the backgrounds that they come from. And there was a part of me that's like at the very beginning that's like, I'm not one of them. I just got to do this. I'm not one of them. But by the time I got done, it was sad to go. And it was like, I'm one of them. It was a club I never wanted to join. but unfortunately I was defaulted into membership, and I had to decide what to do with my membership to that club. I could stay drinking, or I could find a way out. And at that point, I didn't want to go to jail anymore. Jail was so horrible and traumatizing that I couldn't go there, and I had to make daddy proud. So, and my mom was so hopeful that this time it would be different. And my kids, I told them before, I'll quit. Oh, I'm quitting this time. One time I offered Seth $50 if I relapsed. Guess who paid Seth $50?
Yeah. Hey, at least you were true to your word. You gave him $50.
Well, I figured if I was I had to make it worth it. If I was going to drink that drink, I was going to drink it because I was willing to pay $50. Evidently I was. Mm-hmm. That's not healthy. Not at all. And the whole time I was going to the bar studio, I was still functioning there. People, for the most part, didn't know anything there. I mean, I was not a teacher then. I was just a student. But there was something already yearning in me. I had reached out to this bar studio. I was getting connected with these women. They were doing these healthy things. You know what I mean? Long before this happened, there was a part of me that was already reaching out.
And then it became part of your recovery process later?
It was huge because I was offered when I was in treatment that I had to do a certain number of self-care things a week, and I had to report back with them. I used bar classes because I was uncomfortable at AA, and they, it wasn't for me. And I know AA people think that's the only way to go, and that's fine. If that works for them, I don't begrudge somebody else their recovery. I found mine successfully this way. So I leaned into the bar studio, and I leaned into God, and I leaned into family and friends, and I really just was vulnerable. I mean, I couldn't help but be vulnerable. The loss of my dad just stripped me bare.
Wow.
So,
that's amazing. What other things did you do in self-care?
I do all sorts of things. I have a gal that does my eyebrows and does my facials. Nice. I have massages, and I take walks, I read. I mean, I do all sorts of things. Now that my kids are grown, I can be a little bit more selfish with stuff like that I never could have done before.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Just girly stuff, mostly.
I love it. And how many classes a week do you teach?
I only teach about 2 right now, but that's because we closed one of our studios and we have over 20 instructors. So we're trying to all kind of get in there. Okay. But before COVID, I was teaching more times a week than I wanted to. I was like begging people to take my classes. So hopefully a happy medium will be struck at some point.
More balance.
Yeah. Because really it's a little job, but it's more my hobby than anything. I do it out of passion. I do it because I love the people. I love Monica at the studio, It's just it's my people,
Yeah. In case you're wondering, she's an instructor at Barbell.
I didn't know if I was allowed to say.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course.
Barbell Fitness Studio.
Yeah. Definitely, because we love Monica too, and she's just done so many things for the community and obviously for you and your recovery. And so give her a shout out.
She's one of the first people I told about the DUI because I was going to miss my class and I didn't want her to charge me $10 for a late cancel. So I found a way to reach out to her even though I didn't have my cell phone. I'm like, this happened, so can you cancel me out of class? And later on, she's like, seriously, dude, like, what?
God, I can see her saying that.
But there's always been a part of me that's always wanted to follow the rules and do the right thing. So, of course, I was going to make sure Monica got communicated to.
But in doing that, maybe you found out certain things even about her or other women that you open up to that you go, oh, we're all real people with real stories that have, like, you would never guess that we have unless you truly got to know someone and asked, just tell me a little bit more about who you are and what makes you tick. And all this stuff comes out that we never would have known. So
it's so true. So many of the ladies, one or another will stay after class and we'll visit. And, we're not necessarily bosom buddies, but we sure do care about each other and we open ourselves up to each other. And there's so much value in that. You don't have to have, everybody glued to your hip. You can have a wide circle of people that actually know some very personal things about you and love you, and you love them back, you know.
Absolutely.
And people, they have gems. If you just ask people the right question, like, how did you meet your husband? You get amazing stories out of people.
That's true.
It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about your kitties.
My cats. Okay. Rufus is my big yellow cat. And I've had him for a lot of years. He saw me through that last divorce. I even itemized him on the divorce because I wanted to make sure my ex-husband wouldn't be mean and try to take my cat. So he's been around. I think he's like 15. They're all rescues. And then Peep, she's a tuxedo, and she's got really long legs, and she's really lanky, but she's socially awkward. So if anybody comes around, she peeks around corners at them, but she won't come out. And then Cookie Pants, she looks like a big bear of a cat. She's calico, and she has like a little black bit over her face. So she always looks like she's got a resting bitch face. And she's got a really nasty wild side, and she's got a really soft, sweet side. Oh. So I tell people that my cats all have a little bit of my personality. They're all kind of a reflection of me. So, and Cookie Pants has her own Instagram page.
It's called Cookie Pants?
Yeah, it's called Cookie Pants is Boss.
Oh, cute. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
So, Katie, what other pearls of wisdom do you have for us, and things that you might want to impart upon us that we haven't talked about yet?
Oh, man. I think what I want to emphasize and share and make sure that I get across is that whatever it is, you have to surrender in order to succeed. You have to open yourself up. You have to be vulnerable. If you don't take a chance there, the outcome isn't the same. Every single risk I've taken, every single painful experience I've had, going through growing pains in any scenario, living in limbo, feeling awkward, all of that comes around and comes through to a major success. So running from the problem isn't going to help, especially if it's alcohol. It's a progressive illness. It is not going to go away. You are not going to get a hold of it. It will not happen. And maybe you won't be as lucky. I'm just fortunate enough to have survived my rock bottom. Lots of people don't. So I'd say surrender and trust that there are resources and help, and that you can do this. It's within every single one of us.
Wow. Thank you.
Thanks.
I love that. Surrender in order to succeed.
Surrender in order to succeed. In fact, after my dad died, when I was in Olympia waiting his funeral, I found a tattoo artist that tattooed "Thy will be done" on my wrist, because my surrender is to give it up to God and to give it up to His will and align myself with His will. It's hard to do sometimes.
It is. I definitely agree with that, because my prayer is always to have God's will be done. And so to be okay with whatever that outcome ends up being, and to not begrudge it or be sad that it didn't turn out the way you want, because then ultimately you're trying to be the one in control.
I can remember sobbing after his death, but saying, God, I don't understand, but okay, you know? So, and I'm happy, and it is a victory. My dad could have never imagined what a victory it would have been. He'd be so happy.
He knows.
Yeah, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be vulnerable, though, because we want to look like we have it all together. It's okay to not have it all together. It's okay to tell people that you don't have it all together. It's fine. It's perfect in its imperfection, and it's going to be okay. So.
Right. We're all just doing our best in this world to survive in the best way we know how, with the tools and skills that we've been given. So if you hadn't gone through what you went through, you wouldn't have those tools and skills. So it is something that is part of your story that you can teach others. And
it's amazing how much more empathetic you can be to other people once you've really hurt and felt open like that.
Right.
Yeah. there's a lot to offer someone from your experience in pain.
And to not judge, right? Other people who appear to not have it all together, right?
I used to be so judgy too.
Yeah.
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 But if you sit in a room full of addicts twice a week in the evening after work, you know, you stop judging people.
So, Katie, do you know any of the resources that are available in this area or nationwide that people can or get in touch with?
Certainly. Of course, there are AA meetings. They can be found online. There are Valley meetings. There are Spokane meetings. There are even Airway Heights meetings. You can find them in any of your areas. I'm not sure with COVID what that looks like, if it's virtual meetings or it's a forum online, or if they're actually meeting. I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure you could find that online. I went through New Horizons for my care, and they were great. I felt like I had the support I needed. I completed the program in the time that they afforded me, and it really did help in the end, because when I took my guilty plea, I was supposed to do one more day in the big jail, and the judge gave me a pass over to do the Geiger class that you have to stay overnight and then you leave the next morning for people that were lesser offenders. I blew a pretty high blood alcohol content, so it affected my charge. So there's New Horizons. Any church pastor, reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. My name is Katie Wilder. I can help you find the resources. If I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head, let me help you find something. There's hope. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be gambling. I don't care what it is. If you need help finding resources, I'm more than happy to help you do the research.
Right. Awesome. Well, and lots of churches offer recovery ministries as well. So another resource there. So yeah, lots of ways to get in touch with Katie and get in touch with things online, just doing Google searches to make sure you get the help you need. So I appreciate that. And it's hard for anybody to tell their story and be vulnerable, let alone be live in front of all these women. So
it was brutal waiting for this to happen, and now I'm okay. I'm very sweaty right now, but other than that, I'm doing okay. I think it's that little voice from junior high that can tell me that people are saying mean things about me in my head that made me nervous. And so I literally got in front of the mirror before this. I'm like, you can do this. You are okay. So a lot of working up my gumption.
Good, because in order to impact other people, we have to be willing to get vulnerable and share, or else how else do they hear about it other than one-on-one? But this gives you a wider audience to share, so we appreciate that.
Thanks for allowing me to do so. It's such an honor.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate you saying yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well, have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye, Katie.
Bye.